everybody, either welcome or welcome back to my channel. So far I've made 2 writing advice videos, one on short fiction and one on creative nonfiction. So now I'm going to give advice on another creative writing form, poetry. In the past I've mostly written fiction, but as of recent I've started to try my hand at poetry as a way to expand my comfort zone when it comes to writing. In fact, I'm actually taking an intermediate poetry writing class this semester, and I want to use what I've learned in that class to help aspiring poets. To get even more help through more videos, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get started! You might have heard it before, but the best way to become a good poet is to read the works of other good poets so that you have a good example to go off of. Start by thinking back to poems you read in your high school English classes. Then think about why your teacher chose those poems. Is it because of their themes and symbolism? Is there a certain vividity to the language that makes it seem to stand out? Does its rhyme or meter enhance the poem? But when I say read a lot of poetry, I don't just mean poems that, were written in your parents' or grandparents' age. Also read poems that get published in contemporary literary magazines. I know a lot of you probably don't give much thought to those. And I know that because I myself didn't until last fall when I took writing for publication in college and learned all about these magazines and even submitted some of my work to a few of them myself as part of an assignment at first, but then I came to really enjoy it. But literary magazines are where you can find work written by aspiring writers just like yourself. And if you're brave enough, you can submit some of your own writing for the chance to get published, which looks great on a resume and is a really good first step towards eventually maybe getting a full-length book published. Not that I'm trying to get your hopes up or anything. Okay, we're getting off topic. Let's get back to the subject at hand. Another place where you can be exposed to poetry is at a poetry slam. Yes, they happen and they are still relevant. They're usually held at schools, libraries, community centers, and even coffee shop open mics. There's no guarantee about the quality of the poems you'll hear since just anyone can sign up for a poetry slam. Just like with the literary magazines, if these people can be brave enough to share their barely there poems with a public audience, you can be brave enough to write a poem and let other people read or hear it. Once you've read enough poems from a variety of sources, you're ready for the next step. When most people think of poetry, they either think of rhyming or lyrical poetry or free verse poetry. If you're a beginning poet, that's probably most of what you've worked with, which is fine. But depending on the subject or goal of your poem, or just your desire to expand your comfort zone, you might want to maybe try out one of the over hundreds of different structures and styles a poem can take. Maybe you want to start with one of the simpler ones such as lyric, free verse, acrostic, haiku, or limerick. Or you might want to go out on a limb and try something a little harder like a villanelle or a sestina. Although there's technically no rule saying that a certain poem has to be about a specific subject matter, you may find yourself wanting to write a poem, a structure that is traditionally written about a certain theme or topic. For example, a sonnet is traditionally written as a love poem. So if you're writing a love poem, that's probably a good structure to try out. But like I said, it doesn't have to be any kind of poem. It can be whichever one you want it to be. Either way, this next tip is really important, so listen up. When it comes to any writing project, the last thing you want to do is be macho. Whether this is your first poem or your 100th, swallow your ridiculously foolish pride and use some of the following resources to help you pick out some of the best words to include in your poem, in addition to the example of already produced poetry like I discussed earlier. It may sound basic, but use a dictionary if for no reason but to be 100% that a word you want to use actually means what you think it does. A dictionary can also help you by just having you look at the page and find a unique word that you've never used or even heard of before. The most obvious one, but one that really works, is a rhyming dictionary. You especially need this one if the structure you've decided on requires specific words or lines to rhyme with each other. You should also use a thesaurus to help you find good alternative adjectives to use, which is going to be really important for the next step. The textbook for my intermediate poetry workshop is The Art of Description by Mark Doty, which gives really good advice for aspiring poets who want to use vivid, concrete images in their poems, as they should. But you don't necessarily need a college textbook to find words that you can use to create tactile images of your poem's subject matter, whether that be an object, place, animal, or person. Like I just said, a thesaurus is a good place to find new and unique describing words to use in place of the ones that have been used 1,000 times. But when it comes to poetry, description isn't just about adjectives. You want to include details that put what you're trying to describe into perspective and really bring it to the forefront of the reader's mind, rather than straight up telling the reader what it is. Even when doing that step, this next one is more important than ever. As a form of writing that's been around for literally thousands of years, poetry has had a lot of time to develop a great deal of cliches, or tropes that have been used so often that they have lost their original intended effect. You might love the idea of a poem about forbidden love, but it's been done already, a lot of times. I'm not saying you can't write a poem on that topic, but you're going to have to do it in a way that no one's ever done before if you want it to be any good. It's easier said than done, but try to come up with your own new trope, one that you've never seen before in any poem. If you put your mind to it, it'll work. Trust me. And if it really works, your poem will really stand out and might even get published in a literary magazine. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope all you aspiring poets out there found my tips and tricks helpful. Do you have any advice for how to write a new poem or make a draft of a poem better? Let me know in the comments down below. And also let me know what kinds of writing advice videos you'd like to see for this playlist. Also, subscribe to my channel so I can get that number up so that I can pretty soon get down to my creative writing contests. But I'll see you next time.